Welcome to the Snowboard Project, version 3.0. I am the computer. Enter your request. Opening podcast directory. You have chosen Real Talk. I will connect you now.
なんですけど、アメリカのガレージブランドでカーディフスノークラフトっていうブランドです。
So today I want to tell you about my personal experience with Cardiff Snowcraft boards. So about halfway through the season, last year, Bjorn Linus let me try out a Carbon Goat. And I gotta say, it was amazing. It features two performance characteristics that are at the opposite ends of the spectrum. It's both damp, meaning that it absorbs chatter, and it's also really lively. It wants to crack huge ollies right off the tail. It's pretty amazing. So anyone who would pick up the board, feel how light it was, I would be like, you gotta try this thing. It's amazing. Sure enough, everyone who tried it was like, where do I get one? Well, you can get one yourself at cardiffsnow.com. You go there, you enter the coupon code, in all caps, the Snowboard Project 15. That's the Snowboard Project 15 in all caps. That gives you 15% off. It's going to be the cheapest way to get your hands on a Cardiff Snowcraft board. So go to cardiffsnow.com and check one out for yourself today.
Howdy y'all, coming at you from the Never Summer Factory with our limited edition Bone. This is the most exciting, versatile, and fun board we've done in our original rocker camber since the Proto CT. It crushes it in the powder because it has these really wide twin tips, gives you a lot of surface area, gets you right up on top of the snow, but it also holds a great edge on hard pack. You have broad contact points, which give you a lot of bite on that hard snow. It's a great carving board as well. We have a sick embossed top sheet, and we're bringing back our blow off the snow base. So get them while they last. It's the limited edition Bone.
Welcome back to the Snowboard Project. I'm Mark Sullivan, and we have a really interesting interview for you today. Normally, we cover legends, we cover pro riders, pro athletes, and people who contribute to the industry. Well, this one falls under the category of contribution to the industry because this is Will Mayo, and Will is the guy behind TowPro Lifts. He is a guy who has taken it upon himself to start making rope tows, and it's really exciting. I think rope tows are really going to allow a lot of people to ride during this challenging season, and so it's, I think, a great opportunity to have Will on the show and talk all about his rope tow. Welcome to the show, Will.
Hey, Mark. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. Just hanging out here in Alaska. Where are you right now?
I'm actually in my van in Maine. I use this as my base of operations, traveling around. I like to hit up some surf spots, go to the mountain, go split boarding. It's just the best way to do it mobily. I tow around a trailer that's got my workspace for tows, and I go visit my partner, Kyle Roy, who is the other owner at TowPro. He has a shop in New Hampshire, so we'll be working out of there a lot too this year.
Where you're going to build them in New Hampshire, like actually assembling these rope tows?
Yep. I actually build the control units while I'm on the road and traveling. This is what the control unit looks like.
Okay, that's like a Nanook.
So I build these out of my trailer. Yep. It's a watertight assembly for keeping the electronics safe inside, and it's pretty durable. But yeah, I assemble those right in my trailer while I'm traveling around.
Really? So you just pull over on the side of the road and do a couple of hours worth of we got a studio dog here. Sorry to interrupt, but that'll happen.
Oh, what's up, dog?
Yeah, what up, dog? Okay, so what was the genesis, Will, for TowPro Lifts? How did TowPro Lifts come about?
Well, it's an interesting story, really. Scotty Lago called me up and asked me if I wanted to go on tour with him. doing a big air show. And we did 2 years of the Sam Adams Air and Après. And in the first year, we did 3 stops. And all the athletes were taking snowmobile rides to get to the top. It was, adding to the time of the show, and it wasn't really creating the best experience for our viewers. So we decided to take it upon ourselves to build a portable rope tow system. The owner of the show had built some back in the past, but he really just kind of assigned us with the task of just creating something that's functional and works. So we started from scratch, created a sweet new design, and put that through its paces on the second year of the tour. So I had double duty. I was like running the rope tow, and then I was hitting the jump and being part of the show too. It was a lot of fun, a lot of banter. And Tim Humphreys, who's one of our reps here at Tow Pro, or one of our athletes rather, repping the brand, he's been an integral part of forming the system and giving feedback to me and Kyle about how we can make it better. And we really just it's just iterative. We just put boots to the ground and made sure we had all of the possible experiences we could get with the rope tow. And then in the summertime, in the last 3 years, each summer we've been sort of updating the design. And this last year we took it to the consumer version. So we scaled everything way down and made it as cheap and easy as possible to make, so that we can give an affordable price to the end user. So it went from being a project for the pros to being in consumers' backyards in about 4 years' time.
Let's talk a little bit. We'll get to the consumer version here, but let's talk about those first versions. I mean, what were you looking at? I know there's a bunch of rope tows that are out there by like ski lift companies, but how did you come up with the design? Like, what was like how did you come up with out of thin air with a new rope tow?
Well, it wasn't quite out of thin air, but we had a few minor aha moments where, essentially the initial plan was to make something portable so we could bring it on tour with us. So it didn't require us setting up a foundation. It didn't require us pouring concrete or anything like that, or any crazy anchor system. And it really had to be light. So a lot of rope tows you see in the Midwest have like a 1-inch diameter on the rope, like something big and hefty. We actually started with a 5/8 diameter, and that can cut into your hands if you're not paying attention on how to use it. For these consumer models, and since then for the resort models, we've stepped up to a 3/4 inch diameter, which is sort of, I think, the best happy medium. Gives you plenty of rope to grip, but it doesn't shred your hands. It's still comfortable in your hands. And with a nice pair of leather mitts, you can go all day and your arms won't get tired, and your legs will probably get tired before your arms get tired because you'll be getting so many laps. So I think it was like a couple of aha moments here and there where we found the right thing that could grip the rope better on the drive wheel. We were using timing belts instead of chains, and we found that timing belts are a way lower, and they have just as much strength as most mechanical chains, and they don't have a stretch factor like a chain would have. So a chain has a break-in period, so you'd have to retension it. But with the belt, just put it on there, low maintenance, cheaper, easier to take care of, and does the job. So we have a dual drive system that was sort of part of the initial consideration when we started the project. So that way there's 2 actual drive wheels and 2 belts in the front of the unit. So if one belt breaks, one drive wheel will push the rope, which is a really nice thing to have, because actually when we were at Mount Snow doing our show, one of our belts broke because I tightened it up a little too much and it snapped. But we ran the show on one belt and it went fine. So with the resort ready models, like I said, it's just been little steps here and there that have helped us grow the overall design. And I think one of the biggest things that we did was we came up with our own design for a pulley that prevents the rope from derailing. So as you can imagine, if the rope comes off the pulleys, that's probably really bad for the rope. It was the culprit for a couple of failures on tour. We were just using regular sheaves for rope. Our wire rope sheave is what it's called. It's just a pulley wheel. And it would derail, it would jump off the edge of the pulley. So we came up with our own design and had these custom pulleys machined that have a big flared edge to them. And they're a sub-patent in our patent now. So we've got our whole system patented and buttoned up into this nice little package, and now we're taking it to the resorts.
Okay, so let's peel back a couple of layers here. So, I mean, what was your background with like engineering design to actually be like, hey, I can design a lift and make it?
Oh yeah. I started with winches. Really, I go all the way back to when I was in school. So I was a competitive snowboarder in high school, and I really wanted to just move out to Tahoe and go ride with my friends. But instead, I went to Worcester Polytech in Massachusetts. And that was actually pretty good for my snowboarding, too, it turns out, because I got a chance to ride street a ton, and I learned to ride street and the ins and outs of that. And that got me looking for, hey, I want a winch, because my riding was getting to the point where I could go fast and hit some bigger stuff. And I was like, I want a winch, but I couldn't find a place to buy one. So after a couple of years, I was like, screw it, I'm just going to build one. So I built my first winch in 2014 or 15. Yeah, 2015. And we filmed a movie called Spot Pizza. And we updated my winch design throughout that, but for the most part, I had done a ton of research online, and I just stuck to the basics with winches. I didn't try and do anything fresh or new. I just tried to make it cheap and easy to work on. And that winch actually helped us film the movie for 2 years, and it was pretty powerful. That was sort of an empowering feeling too. So after I graduated college, I had not really done much engineering work. I went straight to Tahoe and just snowboarded a bunch. And that was like 2010, 2011. And I went snowboarding for 5 years, basically just traveling and competing and doing that thing. But then I sat down and started building this winch. And that was an empowering feeling for me to like think, oh, I can actually build things with my hands and contribute and use my engineering background to sort of feed my snowboarding habit. And then that sort of blossomed into this opportunity when Lego called me up and we had this whole project to build the rope tow. I was like, yeah, this is what I was born for. I feel like I'm made for this.
Cool. So what was it like adapting a winch into a lift? Like how different is a winch versus like a rope tow?
It's a lot different. There are certain systems that are very similar. People have built internal combustion, gas-powered rope tows before. Obviously, that was the standard for a while, I'm sure. And I use gas motors for my winches because you get that raw power in that specific power band, and they're pretty easy and light when you compare it to having an electric motor and a generator to lug around. But when it came to the rope tows, I was like, electric motors are going to be way easier for the end user. You get that constant torque throughout the speed. So no matter what your speed setting is, you have the same amount of power, which is crucial for this because if I have people running them at low speeds and it's a gas motor, then you're gonna burn through whatever transmission you have. If it's really low, you could burn through a belt in a matter of hours, and it's just going to be more maintenance for the end user. So when it came to switching to learning the electric side, it was a huge leap for me. I had no idea what I was doing at the start. But I learned it, and three-phase motors are very powerful when it comes to what they can deliver, so it was worth it. And we actually we will consider building gas-powered versions of the rope tow, which would be a lot more similar to what my winches were. My winches use like go-kart parts, like a CVT from a go-kart, and a chain drive, sprocket. It's all the stuff that you've seen on a go-kart, just kind of re-envisioned. And then the one custom piece is the spool on a winch, where you want to wind up to 1,200 feet of that really thin nylon Dyneema cord. And so I had to custom make spools out of HDPE, which is high density polyethylene. And I would cut circles by just mounting this piece of plastic on a center hole and then spinning it while I cut it with my jigsaw. And then I would put a couple of axles through, or an axle through the center, and then a couple of rods through from either side to hold the rope out at the diameter I wanted. So that was like the one custom piece other that makes a winch, and it was a fun process to learn.
Right on. So you've developed this rope tow. You started making kind of like resort-friendly versions, let's say. I mean, what was like the first one that you're like, okay, this is actually a product now? Yeah,
I mean, the one we took on tour with us was like the prototype, right? And that one actually lives in Japan now. So we made our first resort sale to Aomori Springs in Japan, which is in the southern island in Honshu. They wanted two, and they got money to us like maybe a month before we had to ship them.
Mm.
So we had like no time. We built the 15 horsepower one from scratch right away. And me and Kyle were in the shop. Oh, Kyle was in the shop for 2 weeks straight on a bender, basically like 17-hour days sometimes, and no days off for 2 weeks. So Kyle's a legend. I'd like to give shouts to him. He's an absolutely awesome partner to have in this business. And for the last week of it, I joined him. So I spent my first build organizing the sale, organizing shipping, building the control unit for it, and doing the wiring for the VFD, which controls the motor. And me and him sort of, we sit separate for the first half of these builds, and I work on the electrical side and he works on the welding and the aluminum and the fabrication side. And then we sort of come together and make sure all the systems work together and finish the final assembly together. And because I like to travel, I like to snowboard, and I like to surf, so I may not always be around the shop. And Kyle's got his own things going on too. He rebuilds race motors for race cars and stuff, and he's got his own custom fabrication shop and business to run too. So I'm really grateful that he's flexible and able to make that work for us. But yeah, so we took that prototype, sent it to Japan, and we freshened it up and made it nice for him. And that thing was like, that's everything in the package. Like, we updated it, full e-stop gate system for it. We got fresh aluminum stanchions for them too on that one, which is just what holds the rope up on the downhill side, keeps it out of the snow. But yeah, that design has stayed true for the last 2 years, basically.
Okay. What are the trickiest parts of the design to figure out? The things that like posed problems for you, engineering wise, to be like, okay, we're not going to rip anyone's hands off here with this product. I mean, what are like the engineering obstacles to overcome when you're making a product basically for the public to idiot proof, let's say, something that has moving parts and people are grabbing onto and such?
Yeah, idiot proof is a phrase we've used quite a bit, actually. And we're talking about ourselves too sometimes when we do it. Like, we want this to be so stupid easy for everyone that no one gets hurt. That's our first like line that we always discuss, is we don't want anyone getting hurt no matter what we make. We want this to be fun for people. We don't want it to be scary or anything.
Right.
So emergency gate system was very crucial for us, and it's necessary if you go into resorts. So we had already developed it really to a point that was commercial friendly before we even took on doing the consumer model backyard versions. So we put that through its paces, and it requires us to have a closed circuit. You can't have wireless stuff. The resorts are all very keen on you having a physical circuit. So we have to run a wire from the top to the bottom of every setup. Mm-hmm. And that's the only other thing besides the rope that goes the length of the deployment. And if you rode over that wire and cut it with the edge of your board, the whole thing will just stop. So if you disabled the e-stop circuit, the system won't run. And that's one of the huge safety things. Like, it ensures that people are using the e-stop gates and not just bypassing them or not setting them up, you know?
Right.
And then the other side of it is the rope. It's as simple and easy as rope is. Splices are really complicated, and it's not very intuitive how we splice the rope. Most people don't ever end up doing something like that in their lives, like connecting two raw ends of rope together and braiding them in such a way that there's no tails or things hanging off. You can't just tie a knot in it, you know?
You can't.
It has to be smooth so it can go through the pulleys. So that was one of the things that we've worked on making easier for the consumer. Initially, we were using that twisted triple braid rope you've seen. It's got 3 strands, mm-hmm. and that strand has a bunch of little strands of rope in it, but it's got 3 main parts of the rope, and they twist the full length, so you see a spiral shape on the rope. And those work great, but the splice is complicated. It comes apart, and when that rope is traveling through the drive pulleys and stuff on our system, it rotates. The rope will spin because of that profile, mm-hmm. as it goes up the hill. And that's one of the things that the tramway safety boards in every state, they don't like. They say you can only have 2 to 3 pieces or 2 to 3 rotations throughout the length of the rope
Right.
as you're traveling up. That way, like if you're riding up holding on, your gloves can get twisted into the rope if it's twisting. So they don't want that. And I don't want that either. So we decided to change over to what's called a double braid rope, which is a diamond pattern. It has strands that weave counterclockwise and clockwise throughout the whole length of the rope. You've seen those too, I'm sure. It's just the crisscross woven pattern. And it has an inner core and an outer core. And they're both pretty similar. They both crisscross and have that duality, big component of what our product is, and it enables you, and if I can teach people rather to splice, then it empowers them to maintain their own product and not have to call me and wait a couple days for me to come fix it.
Right, so every installation
fix
requires
themselves in an hour.
a custom length of rope made. So it has like one length of run that you're going to put the rope tow on, so you need to have the rope made for that specific installation.
Exactly. Yep. So what we're selling with the backyard model is an included 600 feet of rope. And if you don't specify your distance, you're getting a 300-foot run, which is 600 feet of rope doubled over. So you have a full football field that comes in the package. If you want to set up a jib park at that size, that's like 3 features in a row, which is a lot of fun. Most people who have a backyard to snowboard in have something like 100, 200, or 300 feet to use. If you do specify the distance before I ship, I will splice your rope to exactly whatever length you want. And for our resort-ready models, they go a bit bigger. The backyard can do up to 750 feet of run, but the resort-ready ones can go up to 1,500 feet of run. So we're talking quarter mile. We're talking like a full slope-style course. And those ones, they'll use up to 3 or 4 splices in one continuous loop to make the rope that long.
Wow.
Which is, it's a little work to do the first install, but once it's installed, if you ever break your rope, it's still just one splice.
Yep. Interesting. So, I mean, I know that this is a product that has huge liability concerns. You're going to set up a rope tow in someone's backyard. People talk about ski resorts having like just massive liability insurance policies. You know, what were your concerns, and then what did it take to get certified to sell these things to the public?
I was actually pretty surprised at not how easy it was. There was a lot of paperwork, and it did cost a bit of money. But the insurance company that we worked with, they seemed to have a full understanding pretty much right away, and I think that's attributed to the fact that I made a ton of media about the thing before we took it to get insured. So I had visuals to show them. And that's also attributed to the fact that we were tramway safety certified in 10 states in the United States. So every state has its own tramway board, if they even have one. I think only like 20 something states have one. But we've already been certified in half of the states of the U.S. So that was a huge arguing point for us.
Certified by each state? What does it take to get certified?
Yeah, it's a good point. Good question, rather. So any ski resort in the U.S. that has a new lift being installed, it doesn't matter if they've had the same exact product from the same Doppelmayr or whatever the company is that builds it. Every single lift that gets installed has to be fully inspected top to bottom for what it's capable of and for safety systems. So when we were on tour with the Sam Adams Air and Appareil, we had to be inspected by every tramway safety board that we went to, and there was 10 different resorts in 10 different states. We didn't repeat any states, so we had to do 10 inspections. And the representative from the tramway safety board would show up in the morning, usually, hopefully not the same day as our event, so we had time to fix things up if they had any requests. But they would show up in the morning usually, and we would do about an hour walkthrough of the system, show them how it works. A lot of them were like just kind of keeping a straight face and nodding the whole time, and by the end they were laughing and like, this is awesome, I can't believe you guys made a portable version. And some of them gave me like a stern look throughout the whole thing, and were like there's so many questions I have to ask, and they asked me all of them, and we ended up having all the answers most of the time. I think one time we had the guy say, hey, the e-stop gate has to be 25 feet away from the end and you only have 15. So I legit just picked up the e-stop gate and stabbed it in the snow 10 feet further downhill. And he was like, "Okay, you're good."
Okay. So it wasn't that daunting. Was there like an expense that you had to incur with each one of these stops to get it certified?
Yeah, it was sort of covered by the tour. I think there's a fee to do the install. That wasn't my responsibility on the tour, so I don't know exactly what the fee was. I'm sure I'll run into it soon here as we start installing more loops. But in other countries, like in Japan, we didn't have a fee to pay. I guess if there was one, then the mountain covered it.
Okay.
So I'm sure that the Tramway Safety Board has to make their money and pay their employees too.
Yep.
So I understand that that's, people got to make money doing their job. So.
Okay. So you make this rope tow. It's portable. You take it around to all these different resorts, but it's like kind of like a resort design. What was the leap to go from resort to backyard? Like, how did that happen where you're like, wait a minute, we can make this a little smaller, a little more portable, and anyone could have one of these?
Yeah, I mean, I was always I have that engineering brain where I want to build things. And I was always sort of trying to expand the line. Like, we started with that 10 horsepower. And I'm like, well, the 10's like, it's powerful, but it's still kind of big. And I was thinking about, we built in those redundancies, like I told you, with the 2 belts. And I was like, well, if we ditch one of the belts and the pulley setups, and we can save some room and some space. And what if I think I had like the idea about 2 years ago, like, what if I just put it on one of my winch frames? And since then, we sort of updated the winch frame design to work better for both the winch builds and for the Tow Pro backyard model. But just trying to fit the whole package onto that frame was like the big move. It was like, okay, if I tackle this challenge, I can kind of force myself into this package, and that'll give me motivation to get the cost, the price, and the work down to a point where we can get it affordable for end users. Really, the goal was to make snowboarding more accessible for people with the backyard model. We wanted to get it to a point where your average Joe who doesn't necessarily have 30 grand to blow on a rope tow, but has the ambition to build his own park and the ability to build his own park on his own land, like, make it feasible for them. So our goal was like, get it cheaper than a snowmobile. And then we got it cheaper than a snowmobile, and we're like, let's try and get like a used snowmobile. So like, we're looking at $5 grand, $6 grand to buy one of these. $6 grand is our sticker price for the model now. We were aiming for 5 at the start, but it is tough.
Right.
It's tough to cram this whole package into a small thing. But yeah, it's the price of a used snowmobile, and way more fun if you have a small backyard to have this than a used snowmobile. If you have a big backyard with deep pow all day, buy a snowmobile.
But this, you can go with your friends and have laps. And so what I understand is like the portable version or the backyard version is good for like, say, like 3 people going up the rope at a time. So you can have your little crew there and ride this backyard rope tow with more than one person.
Exactly. It feeds the abilities of the crew. Like, if you guys have like 3 or 4 guys around with shovels and you got one of these rope tows, you could churn out a full park part in like a day.
Yeah.
Like, you could make edits like crazy fast. You could just work on your tricks all the time and get better at snowboarding. Like, to have the ability to get to the top of the hill in a minute instead of 5 minutes is insane. Like, you get 5 times as many laps that way. I used to call it the perisher effect. When I was snowboarding in Australia, we would go down for the Mile High by Carlton Dry and compete in slopestyle there. They have a T-bar. Bottom of the T-bar is at the bottom of the bottom jump, and the top is at the drop-in for the top jump. So it's like mad laps all day, no waiting, and only the athletes for the contest were on that T-bar. And I was like, this is how you get better at snowboarding. This is why everyone in the Midwest is amazing at rail riding. And I want to be able to give that power to everyone.
Right. And so then you went about and you started a Kickstarter campaign. Why Kickstarter? Why not finding independent investors? Why did you go that route?
Honestly, Kickstarter was just like, it was always something I looked into, especially with the winches. I tried a Kickstarter campaign with the winches. It failed. That's not a big market for that one. But for the rope tows, I feel the market's much bigger. And I also figured that I am not a marketing guru. I mean, I was a professional rider for a number of years, and I know how to market myself as a snowboarder and have fun on camera and that. And I know how to make videos and things, but I don't understand like Google Analytics and all this stuff. And I figure this would be a quick and easy way to get it out to the world. Kickstarter does take a little cut when you run on Kickstarter, so it was like a balancing act. Like, hey, do I really want to do this? Talked it over with my partner, and we were like, yeah, this will sort of take some of the weight off of us. If it goes viral on there, they have the means to make this thing blow up. And then I wanted to partner with a couple of people in the industry to get the word out, and that's why, you know, working with you guys has been really awesome, because you guys are a core part of the snowboard community and I love what you do. And everybody's been to sort of save the core of the industry, at least in the these crazy pandemic times we're in. We can't go ride resorts with our friends. We're just like, how do we have our social culture again, you know? So it's cool to have this platform to be able to just click send on the Kickstarter link and not have to tell my whole story every single time over and over again.
Right. I could imagine that that's a little bit easier, and certainly, like, I don't know if it's like good timing for you with the COVID and everything, but either way, I think that people are probably, you know, interested a little bit more as far as like your Kickstarter campaign. So I was actually able to bring up your Kickstarter campaign here, and I wanted to talk to you about it. First of all, it looks like you're about almost 95% to your Kickstarter goal, right? It seems like you have a goal of 60,000, and you're within one toe pro lift of getting there.
Yeah, huge shout out to all of our current backers. Thank you guys so much for believing in this project. Yeah, I'm blown away. In the first 2 hours, we had 75% of funding for the
Really?
Kickstarter. So I think that's another reason that this was a great way for it. Sort of like held me to a schedule too, doing a Kickstarter launch versus just saying, hey, we're open for business in the middle of June and trying to sell them one at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I see that you have like a little note on liability in here, and so I mean, what kinds of things did you have to put together for the Kickstarter campaign that maybe you hadn't anticipated before, like going to launch with Kickstarter?
A marketing strategy. I think that was huge to have all my assets first of all. So I only had a couple of these things to work with when I started the campaign. Mm-hmm. And I think I've given them to the right people. I had a demo model that I was going to take around and use myself this winter. And I just gave that to Tim Humphreys and Jeff Sponzo, and I told them, you guys can do a better job than I can because you'll have snow earlier. You're obviously amazing snowboarders. Yeah, I just gave that to them because they are better at using that right now than I would be. They're about to get some snow in Tahoe, and you'll start seeing some content come from them. They'll be using that rope tow in Jeff's backyard, and at Timmy's backyard is pretty crazy. Actually, he showed me a couple weeks ago when I was out there, and they'll be taking it all over, and they'll be taking it to Boreal too to use for pop-up parks this year. So shout out to Woodward at Boreal for making that happen.
So they're going to allow you guys to take this thing onto the ski resort, off the ski resort, and basically move it around because you're now certified in California to have these things working.
Yeah, we're actually not tramway safety certified in California. So what we're doing is keeping it completely private for the time being until I can actually get in contact with a tramway state board certified person and have snow on the ground so we can do a full deployment and test it.
Right.
So California is one of the states we didn't do the tour in, but California is also one of the strictest states from what I hear. So I have full confidence that we'll be fully certified in every state in America at some point. Our system is really unique in that it's flexible. So there's no concrete foundations. We can move things and change distances if they need, and we can change rope speed on the fly. So if they're saying it's going too fast, you just turn the dial back. I can actually show you on our backyard model, the control system here. This dial controls your speed.
Okay. And
this is your direction here for forward and reverse. So you can change the direction of the rope and your speed on the fly whenever you need. So there's a lot of systems that we've built that are flexible, that make it easy for us to get certified when we're doing resort-ready deployments.
Yep.
And they're flexible, I guess, which is the rope itself. It has to be a rope, and it has to drag along the ground. But those don't seem to be anything that would hinder us from getting certified. So I think we have a really good shot in California, and we have a lot of people pulling for us to make that happen too. So
right.
we'll make it happen.
So I actually ended up buying the original lift from Kingvale. It was a handle tow, a Mighty Mite. And I was wondering, like, if you could just describe what the big difference is between a rope tow and a handle tow.
Yeah, I mean, the major difference that you can see when you're using it is a handle tow has this rigid bar that's attached usually to a steel cable. So the mechanism by which the person hangs on is completely different. Handle tows are a little bit more comfortable, some people think, because you can move the handle behind your back. I've done that when I was at Hood, and you can take your hands like right off basically, which is nice. And then some tows like have, I wouldn't call them a handle tow necessarily, maybe a J bar, but it's the same exact idea. It's just another plastic component, and you can put that between your legs. Mm-hmm. And then some of them you just kind of hang on, just like a handle, like right in front of you basically. But it's a bar sticking out of a steel cable. And then that steel cable is the other major difference. Those steel cables are light and strong, but they are also pretty dangerous when compared to a rope. If a steel cable has the same amount of tension as let's say a 3/8 steel cable has the same amount of tension as a 3/4 inch diameter rope, that steel cable is going to cut into you way more than the rope will. It's about surface area. So if you were for some reason hanging onto the cable and your hand went through a nip, it would be more likely to damage your fingers than if you're hanging onto a rope. The rope would be more flexible too, which makes it easier for our deployments because this being portable, people are going to want to roll it up a lot and move it. So you roll it up onto a spool. The rope being flexible makes it really easy to do that. Steel cables, I don't know if you've ever seen them when they're on the ground, but they're a mess, usually hard to roll up into a spool. And they're just generally harder to work with. So
how about like the safety concerns, like as far as like
well,
the soft start, because this thing, the lift that I had this like soft start box. It had to be wired by an electrician, and it was this whole different kind of setup. It looks like your rope tow is actually like very portable, where the control unit, everything is basically just, you have one plug to plug into a generator and then you're going.
And that's what we wanted. We wanted it to be really easy. And this new tech that's come out in the last 10 years or so has really made it easy for us to provide that level of comfort and ease of use. So the brains of our operation, so to speak, are VFDs, variable frequency drives. So your old three-phase motors needed a soft start. Nowadays, a VFD can modulate the frequency, and you can program it to ramp up speed. You can program it to stop on e-stop commands like we do. And we also program it for a few other little features, speed control with a speed potentiometer, which is that little dial speed control. But yeah, this kind of replaces that older tech, and that's what our patent actually covers. So our patent for our portable rope tow systems is a portable rope tow using a variable frequency drive. So the rope tow is sort of the existing lingo that the patent uses, and we're not really changing the game as far as what a rope tow is, but we're changing the game as far as how it's powered and delivered and the portability aspect.
Right. Okay. So walk me through this, for instance. Like, let's say I buy one of these rope tows. I have it in the bed of my pickup truck, and I want to go to a new spot and set it up. Walk me through that. Like, I'm going to a new spot, setting up the rope tow. I have, a cable that goes 300, or a rope that goes 300 feet. Walk me through setting up that new spot.
Yeah. So the first thing you do when you unload, you're going to want to set your drive unit about where you think the bottom or the top of the run is. The bottom or the top is fine for these systems. I will say that if you run your powered unit at the bottom, you're going to want to be a little bit more tentative to your tension. But that will come a little later in the setup. So the first thing you do is you just kind of pick, are you going to run it from the top or the bottom? You set up your powered unit in that place, and you set up your generator or your power source if it's a line power, like plugging into your house. You're sort of dictated where you want the power unit, so that's an easy decision to make. Then the second thing you're going to do is take your return unit to about where you think it's going to be and roll your rope out. Your rope will be on a spool that's it's about 24 to 30 inches in diameter spool.
Mm-hmm.
And you can literally just put that on its side and roll it up or down the hill. I recommend down the hill, way easier. And once your rope's rolled out, it'll already be spliced at that point, so you don't have to go through a splicing process. So the rope will roll out in two pieces side by side, and when you get to the end, it's a loop and it just connects back to itself. You take that loop and you put that over the drive wheel, and you anchor your unit. So you'll just stab in these giant tent stakes. They're about 24 to 36 inches long, depending on which stakes you're using. And you'll put 2 or 3 of those on the pretty straightforward. Just hammer them in. You do want to give yourself about 20 feet of extra space between the return unit end, like the end of the rope, and where. So you have with the straps that the anchors connect to, which connect to the return unit, but also room to take up tension in the rope.
Mm-hmm.
Because the rope will stretch when you put it up. So once you've anchored both ends and you got the rope on the pulleys, then you've got this kind of slack rope that's hanging down in the middle between these pulleys. You connect, or actually your anchor on the drive end, is going to be connected with a come along in between, and that's going to be stretched out all the way. So you'll just tighten that come along when you get to this last stage, and it's just a long lever arm on, like, I don't know if anybody on listening has used a come along to pull a car up onto a trailer before. They have many, they're all over the place. You can buy them at Home Depot. But you just have a lever arm, you just crank and it ratchets and pulls in steel cable. And if you get the rope tight enough on the first pass, then the rope will be floating in the air. It won't be touching the ground at all on the downhill side. So you'll have these stanchions that you just stab into the snow, and you'll put the rope on top of those stanchions. They're just like a little aluminum yoke that holds the rope up. No pulley wheels or anything on it. The rope slides across aluminum with no problems. And if it's not tight enough on the first pass, then you can re-anchor the drive unit and replace your anchors for the come along, and move the come along back another 6 or 7 feet, and then tighten it up again. And honestly, it's a really quick system. The rope is the biggest variable. We did a 50-foot demo installation at Boreal last month, and that took 20 minutes to set up. And that's hammering into dirt, which took a lot longer than hammering into any snow installations I've done. So, again, the rope only being 50 feet definitely saved us some time there. But in 20 minutes, we had the thing up and running. Generator off the trailer and running in 20 minutes, which I thought was pretty impressive. It's the fastest I've ever done.
Okay, so it is actually truly portable.
Yep. It's free. Free from connection to any systems, especially if you have a generator.
Okay, what's like the most challenging setup you've ever done as far as like getting something operational and getting it working where people could actually ride it?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. When we were in New York at Hunter Mountain, great terrain park, by the way. Hunter Mountain was a really fun East Coast resort, a little gem. I'd never been, but we did the show there, and we set up a 60-foot jump, but their terrain park has 2 completely different grades to it. So the first part is really steep, and the second part where the jump was is kind of flat. So we did our installation there, and we put the drive unit at the bottom, which, as I said before, is you need to be a little bit more critical of tension. And we hadn't quite learned about all the characteristics that would give us at that point. So I set it up with kind of regular tension, powered unit at the bottom. And the rope, when we tightened it at first, was like 30 feet in the air in that little pivot in the middle between where the trail grades changed. So it was pretty wild at first. You would think like you're going up and you're like, I'm gonna get yanked up into the air, but there just wasn't so much tension on there that it would actually
this is what we all dream about.
that it would actually
having our
lift
very
you
own
up.
private resort in our backyard
So,
where we don't
I
have
think
to hike.
it's
Yes,
it's
unfortunately, we do still have to shovel.
deployment kind of
My name is
falls
Will
at us too.
and I love snowboarding
And,
with my friends. My business
the
partner,
part
Kyle
that
Roy, and I have been
Caught me
working
by
on making
surprise
portable rope
was
tows
when
for
we did
resorts.
the
And we want you to have the same access and
when we
ease
did
that the
have
resorts have.
5 or 6
We
people
want
on the
you
rope.
to have more time on your
Yeah.
snowboard or your skis or even your inner
We
tube.
ended up getting
That's
like a
what you're
pile
into.
of rope behind the last user. So if you can imagine
we
the
came up
powered
with
unit's
the
right
GoPro
behind you at the
backyard
bottom,
system.
you grab the rope
This
up
rope
off
tow
the
takes
ground,
everything we
and
learned
all
from
of a
the slightly
sudden
bigger
all
portable
the tension
systems
in
and
the
strips it
rope
down to
is in
what's
front of
essential.
you and all the
The
slack
design
in the
focus
rope
was
is
on minimal
behind you.
maintenance and
So if you had
keeping
5 or
everything
6 people
small,
behind you, the rope
lightweight,
would just be
and save
sitting
the
on the
user
ground.
cost and effort.
I was like,
The
it's
control
gonna
unit is
derail.
easily
It's
detachable
gonna fall
and can be
apart,
kept
and
inside
we're gonna have
during
to
extreme
resplice this
weather.
rope.
It features manual input controls for emergency stop, speed
It's
setting,
rail,
power on,
and I
reverse
had
direction.
to splice that
The
rope,
control
and it
unit
was
mounts
freezing
directly to the
cold.
power
Everybody
unit,
knows
which
how
can be anchored with the
bitter
included hardware
East
and
Coast.
come along.
um, it like we have humidity obviously on the East Coast, so everybody knows how your fingers feel when they're out in the cold. So imagine doing that for 45 minutes while you're connecting 2 ends of the rope together. It was pretty brutal. So the park crew saw me struggling. They brought me inside, and I dragged just the sections of rope I needed to work on inside the park hut, which just so happened to be close enough. So half the rope's inside the building, the rest is just out on the course in front of our jump. And I'm splicing up the rope, sitting on the couch. I have like a little flame torch to help melt the nylon, and everybody else in the park crew is just hanging out, having beers and stuff, and I'm working, sitting on the couch. So that was the saving grace of that deployment for sure, that I had some heat and was out of the wind and the cold for a minute. But yeah, that deployment was pretty challenging on all sides. So that was when we learned that if you put the powered unit at the bottom, the tension is very critical. You can always increase your tension a little bit more and add more anchors, anchor to something more sturdy like a tree or a tent. That would be always the recommendation, is go redundant on your anchors, because everything else in the system is bomb proof. And if you have anchor pullout that's really bad, that thankfully has never happened to me.
Oh
But,
boy,
you know,
knock on
if
some wood
the
right
powered
there.
units,
What would happen if an anchor weren't secured properly and it were to pull out? What would
It would
be
be bad.
like the worst case scenario there?
the worst case scenario I could imagine is there's like the anchors aren't even attached yet, and like we're setting it up, and like for some of the bigger ones, they have to be pulled by the cat to set them up. You just can't pull a 40 horsepower motor uphill with your hands.
Yeah.
So the worst case scenario I've imagined is that somehow the straps or something on a 40 horsepower unit come loose while it's being pulled up the hill by the cat, and the thing just it's built on a sled basically. So it's just flying down the hill, and it weighs, 900 pounds.
Right.
It would be bad.
Be a
But
bad afternoon.
I always double over on my straps. I've never had an anchor fail, and we always go redundant. If we're ever worried, we just add more anchors.
Right on. Right on. So now if someone is interested in finding out more, what is the address for the Kickstarter campaign? How long does it last, and how many units are still available? Because I know you've almost hit your limit now. Or is that a limit?
Well, we've almost hit our goal, but our limit is still 28 units away.
Okay.
So the web address for the Kickstarter is long, but I can say you'll find it in the Instagram bio, link in the bio. Or on our website, on our Kickstarter page on the website. And the website is towpro-lifts.com. That's TOWPRO-LIFTS.com. And that has all the information that you would want to learn, or at least all the basic information you'd want to learn about any one of our units. So it has a whole page dedicated to the backyard model and several pages dedicated to the resort-ready models. I'll have a whole page on there about our safety systems, and a whole page on portability and why it's important for what we do.
Okay.
So our website's a huge resource to learn.
So let's say I want to buy one of these. I got $6,000. What's that process like of buying one of these lifts and then getting it to me and then getting it set up? What is that like?
Well, right now, if you want to buy a backyard model, you can go to our Kickstarter page. You have to sign up for a Kickstarter account is the first thing they'll make you do. And then you can click back this project. You give them your credit card, and your backing will be added to our total. I can say right now, the next person who does that will guarantee that everybody who's backed it so far gets their unit and guarantee their own unit in the process. So right now, none of those things on the Kickstarter are guaranteed. None of our are guaranteed to get what they've paid for yet through the Kickstarter, because we're not fully funded, and Kickstarter doesn't give out money until you're funded.
Right.
The other end of the spectrum is if we sell 40 of these units and we sell 20 snowboards and we sell everything, we're maxed out. Then nothing will be available on the Kickstarter except t-shirts. T-shirts are the only thing I didn't put a limit on. That is still quite a ways away. We'd be very fortunate, very lucky if we get to that point. But as for now, like, there's still plenty of units available, and you can just go right to our Kickstarter and buy them. Say you missed the Kickstarter window, it does end at the end of October, and we haven't filled our production queue up. We haven't sold 40 units. Then you could probably still get, or you definitely can still get a rope tow this year by going to our website and submitting a request for quote, or emailing me personally, will@towpro-lifts.com. And you will be able to submit a request for quote. I'll send you a quote for what it will cost. And there's no surprises. That quote is a number I stand by. So I'll quote you for your delivery charge, taxes if they're applicable, the fee for the build and deployment of the unit itself. And that comes back with a parts warranty for a year and service for a year. And we will do everything in our power to make sure that our product and your smile are doing great. I want people to be able to ride their backyard and have fun.
Right on. And so when will these first units like get sent out? If you get fully funded, which it looks like you're pretty close, when would the first units be built and then delivered to the consumers, to the riders?
So we've already started building the next few units that are going out the door. We did 4 backyard units this summer in sales, and it's not really sales because they're all going to our pro team athletes, and one sale to this guy who was like an early backer. He was like really hyped on us before we did the Kickstarter and everything. So we sold one to this group called Adrenaline Urbain in Quebec. And those guys are stoked. They have a really cool facility, skateboard, snowboarding, and they're getting one early before the Kickstarter. But we've already started building the rest. We've started on 7 out of the 13 or 12 that we've made so far.
Okay.
The ones ready are the ones that are in California and Utah. Will Wesson, pro skier, has one. And then, as I told you, Jeff and Tim Humphreys have one in Tahoe.
Okay, interesting. So, these things are getting built right now. What is like how long does it take to build one of these things, and like how much time is like you guys engineering parts of it, and how much of it is just bolting together off the shelf type stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for us, we've tried to get every part we need close to what it needs to be before we get it, if that makes any sense. But a lot of the things like this control box I showed you are very intricate and labor intensive. So for me to spend a full 8-hour day in the shop building, I will come out with one of these control units done. And for Kyle to spend a full day in his shop building, he could come out with a frame for the return unit, a frame for the drive unit, and all the aluminum stanchions for one unit. So together we get like the basic part of it done in 2 days of manual labor, or 1 day if we're working together at the same time. Mm-hmm. But to do full assembly and everything, it's probably 2 full days of both of us working to do one unit.
Okay.
So when you look at us, the units before the 5th, which is what we're doing, we're promising that 20 units will be delivered before Christmas time this year. It's a long haul for us to do in the next 2 months. We're gonna be cooking.
Right, and you're in a van right now. Are you just as efficient in
fortunately
the van?
Well, when I'm traveling, I think I'm doing pretty good. I just spent a month driving around the U.S., and me and my girlfriend just kind of kept to ourselves and went to surf spots and national parks and saw the sights. And in my spare time, I was working, and I built I built one of these control units in maybe a 6 or 7 hour period doing that. And in that time, I also did a couple deployments. Like I said, I set up 2 different rope tows to Will and Jeff Sponzo, and so that gave me some more experience, insight to how it might go if I'm traveling and doing this. I think I can build 2 or 3 of these a week, at least the electrical component, and still travel and snowboard. So I just want to keep it efficient. And when I'm in the shop, I can hammer these things out. Right. I can work a lot more efficiently when I'm at Kyle's shop and have all of our tools around us and all the resources that Kyle has been so graciously donated to this company. Basically, he's an incredible fabricator too, and he can also keep up with that sort of pace. So I think we're pretty evenly matched in our production capabilities.
Right on, right on. So, what have been like the biggest challenges, but also the biggest things that are surprising in terms of the success of this business? Like, what are the things that you didn't expect to be obstacles? And then on the opposite things, what are the things that you didn't expect to become like gratifying as far as this process goes?
Oh man, tough obstacles. There's one thing that stands out to me that kind of is part of both of these things. Tough obstacles, splicing rope. I did not think it was going to be so time intensive to connect 2 ends of rope together. And at the same time, it's incredibly gratifying and incredibly awesome to see one of my clients learn the process of splicing rope and being empowered, because that's the biggest thing I'm worried about. I know what we've built is easy to use and durable and tough, but there's no way to get around splicing rope or make it easier right now. I'm working on that. If I can come up with some sort of rope coupling system, then maybe I'll patent that someday. But right now, it's braid these things together. So one thing that stands out answers both questions is splicing rope. When I'm doing it, it's a hurdle. But when I see someone else doing it, it's incredibly gratifying to see that they're that passionate about snowboarding that they're going to learn this really obscure technique.
Right. And you're like, there's one less rope I need to splice.
Yeah, totally. And then it's sort of a hurdle, but getting all the paperwork for this thing done, like insurance, LLCs, lawyers, all this stuff, contracts, things like that, is pretty daunting when you look at all the paperwork, and then fielding emails to clients and stuff. Like, for every 1 rope tow we've sold, I've answered 1,000 emails about what the hell is this thing. And I love connecting with people all over the industry, but I love doing a lot of other stuff too. And sitting in front of my computer all day and sacrificing a surf session or snowboarding mission to answer emails is tough, but I got to do it. So that's one of the daunting things.
I mean, out of curiosity,
and then again,
do you see the backyard part being a bigger part of the business, or the resort part being a bigger part of the business? Which one do you see kind of growing more in the future?
I would like to keep them balanced as far as the amount of work I'm putting into them, but without a doubt, the resort ready models are our bread and butter. Like, the resorts can save money coming to us and still make us money in a good margin. And that's like sort of, we're trying to be like the Robin Hood of the industry. We're robbing from the resorts and giving to the poor, kind of a thing. I want to empower the everyday guy with the backyard model, where I'm taking kind of a hit compared to the resort models when I'm doing my balance sheets and profit margins. So I would love to be able to use the hype behind the rope tow itself to drive resort sales, and then sort of give back in these other programs in the backyard model. And the backyard model has the potential to be the municipal snow park base around the country. So I've had this vision of skate parks cost a concrete skate park's like 80 to 100 grand, yep. And they're all over the US. Why can't we have municipal snow parks for kids to learn how to snowboard? I want to create this access for people to snowboard all over the country. I want to partner with towns and sell them a backyard model at a discounted rate, if that's what it takes, to get them to put one in, so that we can get these kids snowboarding. Like, kids who can't go to the mountain, can't afford to go up to the mountain because the tickets these days are $200 at Vail for a day pass. I'm not paying that.
It's
I
expensive.
want kids to be able to just walk the local hill and go shred.
Yeah. That's a, a really a very good intention, because I think that just making snowboarding more accessible to people should be a goal for more people involved with winter sports. And obviously you have a background in snowboarding to the point of that you wanted to actually create this for other people. So maybe we could just get a little bit into your background with snowboarding, as far as like what got you involved. Where are you from? Like how did you like basically get to the point where you were like pursuing snowboarding with your life?
Yeah, I grew up in Maine. I started riding. The first place I rode was here in Auburn, Maine, at Lost Valley. Shout out to Lost Valley. It was the first job I ever had, was coaching snowboarding. It was the first contest I ever entered. It was the first chairlift I ever rode at. Like this little tiny 200-foot vertical hill has always been the center of my universe in a way. It was where I discovered snowboarding could be like a community, could be like, I wasn't a popular kid in high school. I didn't have a ton of friends. So when I made friends snowboarding, that was when I felt like accepted for the first time. And I would ride all over Maine and New Hampshire. I got introduced to riding at Loon when I was in college in Mass. I got introduced to riding when I was in college in Mass. And that was a huge breaking point for me. I was like, okay, I don't have to like be one of these crazy competitor guys. I can go out and film. And, I was never expecting to make a ton of money snowboarding, but I was always expecting to be on my board as much as I could. And that was what I wanted to pursue. So when I got to the point where I was, entering USASAs in high, and then I started hitting street rails and stuff when I was like 18 and 19, I was like, yeah, I could dive into this, because the community was just all there at that point. That was sort of the peak of snowboarding as far as like industry. That was back when all the big pros were making millions and stuff. I was already into all the videos and just trying to replicate what I saw in videos on the street with my friends. And I was like, after I graduated from college in 2010, I was like, heck it, I'm out to Tahoe. My friend Danny Tumarkeen, who is an absolute legend and a TBI survivor, has had a huge influence on my life. He invited me to come live with them in Tahoe, and at the time it was the Shreddy Times crew. Shout out to Danny and Connor Tumarkeen for just taking me under their wing and allowing me to take my snowboarding to the next level. I got my first pro contract that year in 2011, and I sort of never looked back. I just was like trying to add to what I was capable of doing as far as tricks and travel, so I could feed the need to snowboard year round. Took some trips around the world, and very grateful to what snowboarding's given me. And I think Toe Pro is a beautiful thing for me, because I have a chance now to give back to a community that has given me so much.
Right. And so I'm just kind of curious how you came to this decision to get involved with the industry side. You were an athlete, you were a rider, you were filming parts, that kind of thing. But then you kind of took this turn to be like, I'm going to go into the business side. I'm not giving up the snowboarding part, but maybe I can do something more here than just catch air and impress people with my skill set.
Yeah, that was sort of always the goal. Since, I obviously have to have passion for engineering too. And if this is a podcast about engineering, I could talk your ear off about all the various things I've been enthralled with as far as technology and learning and designing and all that stuff. And that's what got me through college. Like I love making things and designing from concept and taking it to a prototype and then iterating to something that's more user friendly. And like I built out my own van for traveling and living, and all the systems in here that's been like, this is like what I want to do with my life, is make things. So it was always the dream to combine engineering with snowboarding. And I was sort of sick. I had this day job when I like stopped riding for companies and income. I had gotten this gig testing valves for the oil and gas industry, and it was just not up my alley, not what I wanted to be doing. I was grateful for the opportunity to work, and it was good income, but I used that time while I was working there was when I filmed my full movie, and I still kept trying to be able to make a living while snowboarding and surfing as much as possible. And so there was always this vision of one day I want to own a company, and I want to start something, or at least that will enable this lifestyle. And with the winches, it was certainly like, okay, there's something that works here, something I can do. And then I was gifted really this opportunity to build this rope tow system. And I'm so grateful that I had it, because it feels like what I was meant for.
It seems like, you could really easily fall into this trap where you're kind of like working, you have a job, you're testing valves or whatever, and it's paying the bills, and you can just snowboard on the weekends or whatever. How did you like make that leap to be like, I'm going to create something of my own, I'm going to do this for myself, and not just take whatever engineering job I can have to make sure I have health insurance and a 401k and a regular paycheck?
Yeah, I mean, I feel pretty fortunate. I've had some pretty bad crashes in my day, but I never really like used health insurance as my motivating factor to keep my job. I've also been pretty fortunate to have a lot of good voices in my ear about like, hey, you could chase the money and you'll be happy, you'll be comfortable, and that's good. But like, you don't want to look back and think like, oh, what if I just tried a little harder for a little longer? And I'm really grateful to the people who have like kind of showed me that you don't have to chase the money. You do have to chase what makes you feel good in life, though. You don't want to have regrets on your deathbed. And I learned at a young age that death is a very real thing. My dad passed away when I was in 8th grade, and that sort of like lit this fire in me. Like, I'm gonna do as much as I can all the time. And it doesn't matter if I have someone supporting me or not. I'm just going to keep working for it, working towards it. So I think for me, I've been fortunate to be in the position where I can say I don't need health insurance, because that never became a reality to me, because I had a broken leg or something. I've never, knock on wood again, never broken a bone. But I also knew that I had to pay the bills somehow. So that was like, I had to take that job and work for the man for a while, but I did it always with the idea that I'm saving as much money as I can to pursue my own thing at some point.
Okay, so now you're pursuing your own thing. When did you take the full-time leap into doing it for yourself?
Oh, I actually quit that day job like a month ago.
A month ago, so literally this is fresh.
Yeah, I mean, that for the last year and a half, I'd been only 3 days a week at that job, which is like unheard of in the engineering world, or their valve testing world even too. Like, I was a part-timer, and no one's a part-timer, and I was literally using everything in my quiver, so to speak, to make that happen. I was also to pay the rest of my bills, because still wasn't living as cheap as I am now in the van, but to pay the rest of my bills, I was shooting photography for weddings, shooting drone video for real estate. I've got my income sort of spread out across a lot of things, which gives me a little more comfort going into this entrepreneurial thing, starting a business. And I just want to know that I'm financially safe. And so I have many different ways I could go to make money, and I don't need to go back to the day job no matter what happens.
Okay. So do you have a full-time job now if you get fully funded on Kickstarter? Does that become your job now, or is it like still juggling?
Yeah, I've basically committed to 40 hours a week at Tow Pro. I started that a month ago.
Okay.
So whether or not we're funded at this Kickstarter, I'm, until the money runs dry. Fortunately, we sold a couple resort models in the past year, and those have been able to keep the dream rolling, keep this stage of the process of growing rolling for a little while. And the Kickstarter will be another little bump to keep us going for another couple months. Hopeful that the word gets out there to the resorts at a certain point where they're like, they can't say no to this. Because like, if you could set up a lift in one day that serves your terrain park or serves your race team or serves your events crew where you have to do pond skims or whatever event you have running that day, then I think the resorts just can't say no. Like, it's a solution that'll save them money, and it'll save them headaches too with lift lines and stuff, especially going into this COVID era season.
Yeah, kind of a crazy season. So maybe, I mean, I can see here clearly you're a dedicated snowboarder. You're dedicated to enjoying the sport and making a career out of it here. So maybe we can, just finish things out with like this elevator pitch for kids who are dreaming about having their own park and what it would mean, for you to have a park set up, a rope tow in their backyards. And what do you think that they're overlooking as far as like what that could mean to them in their riding?
Yeah, I mean, if you love snowboarding, never give up on it. Like it can bring you so much joy throughout your entire life. If that's one thing I could impart to kids out there who want to snowboard, the depth and breadth of what snowboarding can give to people is amazing. And if you want like your own rope tow in your own backyard, just get some friends together, like get some people who share this vision. And you can do this on your parents' land or public parks even. But if you guys got a couple friends together, and instead of pooling your money to buy a new Xbox or something, you could or instead of you each buying new Xboxes or something, you could pool your money to buy one of these, and it could change your life. It could make your snowboarding go to that next level. Maybe you could start being out if that's what you want to do, or maybe you could just start filming your own video part and working on that sponsor me tape. I know when I was younger, I was sponsor me tape for like 4 years until I had one. And it's just never give up. Like, don't let people tell you can't, because you can. You absolutely can. If you love it hard enough. Not everyone's a natural born talent like some of those pros out there, but if you love it hard enough, you will make it happen. Just don't give up. So, yeah.
Cool. So where are we going to find you out on the road this season? Where can we find you if we're looking to find one of your rope tows, or you out on the road doing stuff? Where are we going to be able to put our leather mittens on your rope?
Oh man. Well, Rotorun in Idaho. They're just down the road from Sun Valley, Idaho, I think.
Yeah.
Rotorun is a non-for-profit ski area. They just got a 25 horsepower rope tow. We're putting the finishing touches on it in a week or two and shipping it out. So that rope tow will be able to carry 15 to 20 people uphill at once. And that thing is a beast. It's I'm really excited to get that one on the snow. They should have it up and running mid-November, if not a little later. And they're a non-for-profit ski area. They're pretty cool. They're sort of carrying on that line of making snowboarding and skiing more accessible to young kids and to people who don't have much. That place is awesome. I'm really excited to be partnered with them, and they've been really supportive of like our vision for what this rope tow can be. And yeah, you'll be able to find one there for sure. I've also been in talks with Woodward at Copper, Boreal, and Park City. They may or may not be getting some this year. You'll definitely be able to see, at least in person, Tim Humphreys and Jeff Sponzo's rope tow in the Tahoe area. So if you happen to know them already or see them at Boreal, just hit them up, ask them about it. They have lots of info to share, and I'm sure that they'd love to show you what they have. Also in the line traveling circus, I know they're skiers, but hey man, skiers aren't all that bad, I guess.
As
but
long
yeah,
as
no,
they buy
Will
a
Weston
rope tow, they're
really,
okay.
yeah, no. Will Weston's actually a really good snowboarder too. He's one of those guys who he loves the community that we have in skiing and snowboarding, and he wants to bring us all together. And I'm so down with that vision. And Will is like, he's got this mind that's just constantly working on ski tricks and snowboard tricks and features and stuff. He's been up at Wasatch Academy in Utah building rails basically for free, because the people there are letting him use that side of the hill for his rope tow all winter. So he can just build rails and set up whatever he wants, and he's got this really cool program going up there. So check out Will Weston, Line Traveling Circus, and the Wasatch Academy, who bought a couple of rope tows through the Kickstarter already.
Right on. So So let's say you have, one of these backyard ropes. What does your park look like? Is it like, I mean, you have, 300 feet of line there? I mean, what do you get, like 3 rails, a jump? I mean, what would be an ideal backyard setup? So people can picture it in their heads of what their backyard would look like.
Yeah, I mean, the run I would build would be like a hell track kind of thing, like a downhill BMX course where we have, bank slalom elements, some pole jams, some log jibs, some jumps, some gaps. Like you could probably fit, like 4 or 5 features if you do like a snake run like that. But if you're just doing straight like down rail, down flat down, and a donkey, you could do three rails in a row, no problem at 300 feet.
Mm-hmm.
When I was building park at North Star, we would say like 100 feet is good for a feature.
Okay.
And North Star builds like that skate park flow. So that's the feel I like when I ride park, to have that flow where you land off a feature and then you have just enough time to set up, regain your composure, and hit the next one. So you could build 3 in a row on that, or you could do a jump and a rail. It'll take up about 200 feet, and you could do a rail leading into a jump in that distance. If you want to buy more rope, we can sell you some more rope, and I'll splice it on for you. And you can go up to 750 feet, which is enough to build a 50-foot jump if you have the resources and abilities to do it. You can dream of basically with this length of run.
50-foot jump, you're going to need a snowcat or some strong friends.
Yeah, or the right terrain, I guess. If the terrain can be your friend if you have the right spot.
That's true. That's true. So if you could set up one of these anywhere, dream location, where would be the spot that needs a rope tow that doesn't have one right now?
Oh, man. A backcountry jump rope tow has always been the dream. We're working on a new design. I'll let out a little leak here. It's going to be a battery-powered rope tow. And my dream location would be to have it set up between 2 snowmobiles as the anchor.
Okay.
Turn unit attached to the tail of a snowmobile, and the powered unit's already attached to the other tail. Opposite directions, 600 feet apart. Roll out the rope between them. Hold onto the rope. You and your buddy can session a jump you built in the backcountry without having to hike it or snowmobile lap it.
That would be pretty amazing. So I also noticed, by the way, that it said on there that you could set up a solar system to run your rope tow. What did that solar system look like? I mean, how many panels does it take to run a rope tow?
Yeah, so it's about 7,500 watts. To give you an idea, my van has 3 panels on the roof, and that's 550 watts. So that would be 21 panels plus. So we're looking at like 24 panels that are 4 feet long by 2 feet wide, 2.5 feet wide. Pretty decent size.
Right.
Solar array you would need to run this. But with a battery bank, and that's when you're getting into some pricey options for sure. But with a big battery bank, you could probably cut that solar system in half and just juice up these batteries all day and then run the system for a couple hours every day. And you can run on solar. So we have a client in Aspen who has purchased on Kickstarter and will be running it on a solar setup. But their solar array is huge because it's going to power their entire facility, not just their rope tow.
Okay.
So they are a condo complex, I believe, that's having their own rope tow installed. And they're running the solar, so they contacted me with their solar engineer, and we went over the logistics of what it would need. And
cool. Well, Will, I am very excited to see this Kickstarter get fully funded, and I think you're on your way here to really creating something new for the sport of snowboarding. I'm really excited to just help you promote it, help you get the word out, and I think that this is probably a dream of a lot of snowboarders everywhere. So for you to help empower those dreams into reality is pretty incredible. So I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your story with us.
Thanks again for having me on, Mark. I'm really excited on what you guys are doing with this podcast. It gives us snowboarders a lot to, gives us snowboarders a lot to keep our minds in the game when there's no snow around here in North America. And it's really entertaining. It's really insightful to hear all the pros you guys have had in the industry come on and do interviews with you. So thank you for what you guys are doing, and thank you for having me on. Really excited
Right on. Hey, sorry about your face resizing a bunch of times. Gonna have to figure out that technology. But sometimes you're right in your face, sometimes you're a little bit further away. But either way, I do appreciate your time, your story, and really what you're doing for the snowboarding community. So thank you, Will.
なんですけど、アメリカのガレージブランドでカーディフスノークラフトっていうブランドです。
So today I want to tell you about my personal experience with Cardiff Snowcraft boards. So about halfway through the season, last year, Bjorn Linus let me try out a Carbon Goat. And I gotta say, it was amazing. It features two performance characteristics that are at the opposite ends of the spectrum. It's both damp, meaning that it absorbs chatter, and it's also really lively. It wants to crack huge ollies right off the tail. It's pretty amazing. So anyone who would pick up the board, feel how light it was, I would be like, you gotta try this thing. It's amazing. Sure enough, everyone who tried it was like, where do I get one? Well, you can get one yourself at cardiffsnow.com. You go there, you enter the coupon code, in all caps, the Snowboard Project 15. That's the Snowboard Project 15 in all caps. That gives you 15% off. It's going to be the cheapest way to get your hands on a Cardiff Snowcraft board. So go to cardiffsnow.com and check one out for yourself today.
Howdy y'all, coming at you from the Never Summer Factory with our limited edition Bone. This is the most exciting, versatile, and fun board we've done in our original rocker camber since the Proto CT. It crushes it in the powder because it has these really wide twin tips, gives you a lot of surface area, gets you right up on top of the snow, but it also holds a great edge on hard pack. You have broad contact points which give you a lot of bite on that hard snow. It's a great carving board as well. We have a sick embossed top sheet, and we're bringing back our blow off the snow base. So get them while they last. It's the limited edition Bone.